Welcome back to Corporate Fuckery, stories of survival, psychological warfare, and choosing what's best for you. I'm your host, Lauren DeGolia, and this season we are rewriting the rules. But before we get into it, quick question. Is your job making you sick? And I'm not talking like flu season sick. I mean body keeping receipts and body keeping score sick. Because today's guest didn't just feel stressed in corporate. The stress helped push her into a health crisis that risked her going blind with a rare eye disease. And that moment became the turning point where trust, truth, and self-belief were no longer cute concepts, but survival to self-mastery practices. Today, we are talking about trust and truth as the new rule and what it looks like to stop outsourcing your knowing, claim your inner authority, and choose a life that doesn't require you to betray yourself to succeed. I'm joined by Carole Murko, founder of Love, Eat, Heal, and someone who has spent decades helping people tell the truth, trust themselves again, and lead from the inside out. Carole is a certified consultant with NeuroChangeSolutions, where she works with organizations to change culture by changing individual patterns, using neuroscience-based methods rooted in neuroplasticity and the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza. Translation, this isn't mindset fluff. This is how real sustainable change actually happens. What makes this conversation especially potent is that Carole has lived both sides of the equation: finance, the C-suite, public media, entrepreneurship, and now conscious leadership. She knows what it looks like to outsource your truth for approval and knows what it costs when you stop trusting your own knowing. If you're done waiting for permission, validation, or external certainty and ready to trust yourself as the source, this conversation is for you. Welcome, Carole. I am so glad you're here.
I'm delighted to be here with you, Lauren. And I love everything about you. And I think the name of this podcast is the best yet.
Thank you. Let's first start with a little bit about your corporate career, maybe some things that you were most proud of, maybe things that you were feeling challenged with. Take us on a little bit of the journey.
Okay. Well, I'll be quick because I have a pretty long journey. Right out of college, I went to Wall Street. Everybody was going there. That's who recruited on campus. There were no mentors. We're talking the 80s, the 1980s. So it might sound like, oh my God, the 80s? Was I even, you probably weren't even born then. Anyway,
Good news, I was.
You just jumped into the man's world. Right? Even the fashion at that time was sadly suits that were boxy and looked like men's suits. You had to wear like these little ties, right? And so we were women trying to fit in a man box. And
women trying to fit in the man box. Yeah, that lands.
And the thing is that's what I actually think even women's lib got it all wrong, is that they were trying to tell us, go be like the men, go get the man job, right? And what the goal should have been back then was go be a woman in the corporate world. Just think of what we may have been able to change if I was given different rules back then, right? Not to wear a women's suit that looked like a man's suit to fit into the man box. If we were just told, go and be the brilliant women that you are and see if you could change the workplace that way.
Yeah, I love that you start here because I recognize this very clearly in my career when I was at Nordstrom and I was working with an executive in the HR space. And she was the tiger woman that had climbed to that pinnacle of her, I'm just going to call it authority, because I feel like that really is what it came down to. And it's like a masculinated female is really what she was about. That was her leadership style. And she didn't give a shit what people thought. I remember one meeting I was asked to help with this employee experience work, an initiative at work. And I was on the phone with her and a whole bunch of other leaders. And she thought that we had all left the call. And it was one of those calls where like people weren't being very decisive, right? We really hadn't come to a decision. And she goes something like, I don't know what they want us to do. This is what people asked for, and we're doing our best to do it. And right then and there, I just saw her leadership, because it was like there wasn't really any thought that was the bigger picture. It was just, oh, I'm just trying to check the box. So when we think about the masculinated female, and I think you pointed to that as, women's liberation, like how could we have equipped women differently given the landscape of it being highly male dominated, and to be accepted, you had to throw your, excuse the phrase, but your balls on the table and be like, no, no, I'm your equal and I will show you that I can do whatever it takes to be your equal.
Well, I think the problem was there wasn't really a buy-in from the corporate side. The corporate side had to actually say, we want women in our workforce and we want the qualities that women have to balance out the toxic masculinity, which I don't think was even concept back then. What they thought they were doing was by adding women in, and it wasn't charity, right? I believe they were told to hire us. It was handled inappropriately the whole way along, right? It was just all wrong. Women didn't even know how to, like you mentioned, didn't even know how to deal with each other on the path. That if we had to fight so hard, then we almost got selfish about it, which is not the divine feminine at all. We were really becoming men. We were becoming territorial and competitive and edgy and all of those things, which, by the way, basically asks you to shut down who you are. So what's happening, and I used to say this, I'd step into the lobby of the building, leave my personality in the lobby, get in the elevator, and come out who they want you to be. And that is not sustainable. That is not even that's so unhealthy. And people then forget who they are. They forget who they are.
So there was a woman, in my opinion, that just heard you say that I have to be a different version of myself walking in, or that this is just how it is, or this is just how it's always been, and there's never going to be a path forward or a way forward. Somebody just had a visceral reaction to hearing that it wasn't intentionally created this way, that this is how life is. How do you see that differently now from where you sit?
Interesting that you don't have to play by the rules. You can make up the rules. And to be clear, I did make up the rules. I didn't accept it. I literally went around the office and said to 30-year-olds, do you really like this? Because I was trying to project myself as from a 22 to a 30-year-old. Could that be me in 8 years? And because I thought, God, no. And so start asking the questions as soon as you have the doubts. That's what I would say. And don't accept that as the reality, because so many people accept it. So you think you're the odd man out. And then you feel like, why am I such a maverick? Why can't I fit in? The bottom line is we're all unique. We're all different. What we're really on this planet to do is love each other and understand that we are all one, and that we all have amazing skills and qualities, and that there's enough for everyone. And we have been living in this toxic capitalism construct as well that extracts stuff from the earth. It extracts like the lifeblood out of people. And we're here now, and we could share this. We could tell this to people. It is not the way it needs to be, right? We were conditioned in this, and we're talking centuries, right? We're not talking decades. And we're also talking generational stored trauma and all of that stuff.
Yep.
What I would say to somebody who just said, oh God, is to just say, just become the observer in your life and catch your thoughts, and then listen to your soul. Your soul does not lie.
She does not lie. She will get real loud. In fact, she will get so loud that she will make you so uncomfortable that you will have no choice but to listen to her. And sometimes that comes in the form of your subconscious mind calling in some sort of life change that you could have never expected, because she wants you to listen up. And I've lived through quite a few of those now, as I'm sure you have as well.
So to avoid those things, that the changes that are thrust upon you, because you weren't listening to that little soul voice, because you're like, go away, I need to do this, I have to pay my bills, all this other stuff. Listen to her, because she will give you things like diseases, like getting fired when you have a large mortgage, or, any of those things. Listen before those things happen.
Yeah. And, I used to think, obviously, because I blew up my career in 2019 and was I went through major identity crisis after that with no plan and all that jazz. And I thought that was the only way. I thought blowing up was the only way through that level of toxic jail, corporate fuckery, I guess you could really call it. And looking back now, and I think it seems like you share the same kind of perspective. You actually can start making choices now. You could be the C-level something in your organization, and your soul could be screaming every day, and you put on your masks every morning as you walk through the door or hop on your Zoom, and your soul's screaming, and all you do is fantasize about blowing it up. And I talked about this last week with the duality that your mind only really serves you up two options when you live in survival mode 99% of the time. But the fact of the matter is, and I would love your perspective on this, especially with your work with Dr. Joe Dispenza, you have a lot of options and you don't have to blow anything up. You can start to make different choices that are going to serve you better in the long run. So walk us through your perspective on that, Carole.
Well, it all comes back to you, right? Not you. I mean, you, the listener, that the only thing we can control is ourselves, right? So you go in and you think you can try to manipulate this or try to manipulate that. You could try to create a situation where you might feel better or whatever. You have no control of anything. You only have control of yourself. So what you need to really get a grip on is how you think, the choices that you make, right? The actions that you take, and then really look hard. Are the experiences that are a result of those thoughts, are those the ones you wanted? And are those feelings? If you're feeling sad or frustrated or disappointed, go review your thoughts because dollars, I'll bet all the tea in China, your thoughts created that feeling and subconsciously or consciously. And that's a lot of the work that both Lauren and I do in different ways. But until you make the unconscious conscious, you cannot actually make sustainable change, create sustainable change, because that unconscious thought and feeling will just kind of show up when it needs to, because it's already programmed into your system, your state of being. So
Yep.
I really think it's as simple as minding your thoughts.
I think that becoming the observer and then paying attention to your thoughts is one of the most powerful things that you can do just to begin. If you are not happy with where you're at, you feel like your life is a house of cards, you feel like you have no other choice but to live in survival mode, just paying attention to what you think every single day is chef's kiss next level. Is this really true? And then asking, is this thought really true? Is this helping me to move in a direction that is going to continue the pattern that I'm on or something new that I desire? It sounds like there was something in your life, Carole, that kind of got you to working with Dr. Joe. Would you be willing to tell the listeners? Because for me, it was obviously I've had two very large things go down with my career, but I'd love to know what helped you make the leap into this space.
It was the sledgehammer of the universe.
Sledgehammer. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's when we don't pay attention to the signs, when we go into that survival mode of powering through your days, when you cast aside the little voice, and eventually the universe basically says, no, no, you're on the wrong path. So how does it do it? There's many ways. So, I mean, to get to this place, it was a disease. It's gotten me, I've gotten fired in previous places, right? But this place was a reckoning with potentially losing my eyesight with a theoretically incurable eye disease. And it was the greatest gift because not only did I have to figure out how to heal myself, I also had to figure out the meaning of an eye disease. And you could just imagine the amount of journaling one could do about what I didn't want to see, what can't I see, what do other people see in me, what don't people see in me, what would I like to see in myself, it's just the on and on and on and on. And it was such a gift because that gave me the opportunity to explore, take the deep dive, to light a match in the dark places, because my personality type is I'm effervescent. Like, I'm a smiley person. I'm funny, like all of the things. But that didn't mean that I was happy, right? I looked happy, but my heart and soul wasn't happy. And so now It's a lot easier just to so that's what thrust me into the Dr. Joe Dispenza's work and all the different energy work I do and the healing and cooking and feeding people and throwing retreats and all that.
Yeah, I want to get into your retreats, but I first want to get into what signs, looking back, because it sounds like you did a lot of work about lighting the match in the darkness. What signs do you think that you missed that you were experiencing in your day to day?
People pleasing, saying yes when I mean no, thinking that 4 or 5 hours of sleep were enough. Let's see, not speaking up for myself. I was never a pushover. I've experienced people who are mean and have bad behavior, and I should have called them on it. I should have just asked a simple question. Are you trying to be mean? Did you mean that, right? As opposed to absorbing that energy and
Mm,
then finding out what I did, asking what did I do wrong for me to be receiving this ickiness from this person, right? And so I didn't know
mhm.
how to protect myself and I didn't know how to put it back to them.
That's
And
really helpful because, people think that those are just the norms. It's the norm to have 4 to 5 hours a night of sleep. It's the norm to be a people pleaser. It's the norm to allow yourself to be subjected to really shitty, disrespectful behavior in the workplace and just write it off as this is just how it is. And so I want to just go a little bit deeper into how you pieced it back to your eyes, knowing that your body was throwing you, it sounds like this very significant signal about what you are and are not seeing. So if you're comfortable sharing, I think somebody who's leaning in going, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm doing all that too, and I don't want to find myself with some sort of ailment that was caused by all this that I'm only going to recognize, a year or 5 from now."
yeah. So first of all, I'm going to tie the eyes to the liver, right?
Oh,
In
okay.
Chinese.
Yeah.
Okay. So the liver in Chinese medicine is anger. Anger is the emotion associated with the liver. So if you had asked me 10 years ago, did you ever get angry, Carol? I would have said no. So we have all of the emotions for a reason. Like anger, it's okay to get angry, but it's not okay to
Mm,
get angry and stuff it down like it's okay. So you stuff it and stuff it and stuff it and stuff it. And the poor liver is the organ system that processes our emotions. And if we're not processing them, it's creating an imbalance. So it was no surprise that I would end up with an eye disease now in retrospect. But really what I was able to reflect upon is that I also was my own worst critic, that I could not see my value. I was not able to reflect upon some things that happened as a small child that impact how you act throughout your entire life and forgive myself for having subconscious feelings of rejection and not fitting in and not belonging and all of those things. And it's just so powerful to really the eyes were just truly it was a gift, right? That was the disease for me.
I really resonate with you what you're saying because if I had to go back and do it all over again, if I had to go back and live through every heartbreak, every frustration, every part of my unwinding, I would sign up right here, right now. I'd drive myself back. I'd drive 2019 Lauren back to the ferry dock. I'd get on the boat and I'd give my notice again if I knew I was going to get to this place. And it sounds like you have a very similar
Yeah.
reflection.
Yeah. So and see, the other thing that I learned on this journey is that everything's happening for us, not against us. And when we begin to
Yeah.
shift that perspective, which also has to do with seeing, then you life is much easier because you and I both do self-mastery work. It's every time we're confronted with a new challenge, that's really an initiation. And
Mhm.
that's an opportunity for us. Have we gone deep enough? Am I a master yet? And,
Mhm.
how am I going to allow this to pull me back to my old self? My old self would have done X, Y, and Z. Are you going to go back there because that is so comfortable? Or will you have taken these lessons and can you pull yourself back here and maybe even get yourself a little further down the mastery path. And that is the absolute beautiful journey of life, that we have not been taught this concept of mastery. And if we understood it, and the fact that there's no end point on the journey, there's no there, that every single hurdle is an opportunity and there are no accidents. So if they're happening to us, we can handle it.
Yeah, and the mastery in my mind at least, and then I want to learn how you like got into Joe Dispenza's world and have met him and worked with him and all that jazz. The mastery part to me is learning how to set yourself free in the moment from the thing so that it doesn't have to take you out. Because everything that follows after that is just one more level of liberation that you never knew before. The first few reps of doing this work, the self-mastery type work, and yes, part of that is going to therapy and talking through your wounding and doing all that. And as you know, Carole, or I would imagine, confirm with me here, that's one equation of it, but that's doing a lot of past healing, past reflection, past accountability. And the self-mastery part is really about who do I really want to be now and who do I want to be in the future, and how can I learn to keep setting myself free in this moment so that I can become that version of myself and have the legacy that I desire to have.
Yeah. Before we jumped on, I had told Lauren that my husband is in the midst of a prostate imbalance. And I got up one morning at 2:30 and just sobbed, just because what was happening at that time, I was afraid of the unknown, afraid of what I would, when I was like, okay, thinking about all the horrible things that could potentially happen, and cried my eyes out and just tried to really, and then I got to my journal, and then I just saw it as an initiation, and to be in the present moment, and to see, doesn't mean that I can't cry again, doesn't mean that I can't worry, but what it does is I don't wanna stay in that place, right, where I'm wringing my hands, where, like, it's controlling my life, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's like, then the imbalance won, right? And so if it's happening to Jim, then it's happening to me too, right? It's just, and so I went back to my journal. It's like, what are you afraid of? That's what I wrote. What are your fears? So don't bypass, literally writing to myself, you cannot bypass these fears. You're worried that what's life going to look like if he's going to be going through all these treatments, or what if he doesn't live, and all of the things. And
Yeah.
I don't think most people know to do that, to write out their fears, to stare them in the face, to see that as deeply human, but also that fear takes you out of the present moment. Worry takes you out of the present moment. And when we're in fear, we're in survival. And when we're in survival, we're more likely then to stay ill or get sick or have our immune system lowered, all of those things. And so it's, can I, take any bad situation and see it as an initiation? And how do I meet this moment?
I love that you shared all that. Thank you for being vulnerable about your husband's diagnosis. And I think when we think about the corporate fuckery of it all, truly, it is that we don't know anything different than staying in this cycle of fear, survival. Toxicity is what kind of comes to mind, but it's really like the worry of not being enough, the questioning everything, the having to work more than we really should, or some sort of perfectionistic tendency because we feel like that's going to solve that. And so the concept or idea of writing down a fear and being like, well, if I lose my job, like, first of all, our reptilian brain goes to, I'm going to lose my house. I'm not going to be able to feed myself. And as smart women, I would like to just say, yes, that might be true. And you didn't get this far to just instantly go to that level of demise of life. It's a really interesting consideration for us to talk through what it actually looks like to write down a fear when most of us can't even fathom the idea of sitting in that discomfort. Like, that is beyond comprehension in some ways. And I would love your perspective on that as well, Carole.
You hit the nail on the head. Is it's the discomfort that helps us change. When we're comfortable, we're our old self, right? Even if we don't like our old self or our situation, it used to be it's better the devil I know than the devil I don't, right? That was the little idiot, the statement around not changing. But the thing is, it's like, if we accept the devil that we know, then we're in our comfort zone, and you're going to be the complainer. You're going to be stuck in the loop. You're going to just come home after work and you just go, this is better than the unknown and all this other stuff. And what that gets me to is then you don't trust yourself. You've given your power away to something big time outside of you, when if you could sit in the discomfort and the unknown, which I like to call it, is I believe that the unknown never lets us down. Because when we're in the unknown, we're in unlimited possibility, right? Known is limited, right? Comfort is limited, even the comfort sucks, right? But unknown is unlimited. And so wouldn't you rather be in the sea of infinite possibilities, even if you're in uncomfortable?
Yeah. And the discomfort only lasts a couple of reps. The first big hurdle, at least this is my experience, the first big hurdle of the discomfort, which for me was like letting somebody that I very much love have to sit in their own disappointment. For high achieving, highly capable women, it is so hard to think about somebody being unhappy with you. And I had to choose. My initiation in that was letting my best friend of 40 years down and being up at 2 o'clock in the morning and calling Alaska Airlines to change my flight and just feeling like I was literally going to die on the inside because I couldn't fathom the idea. And the thing that set me free in that moment was, would I rather allow myself to be disappointed or allow her to be disappointed? And any person listening right now, there's something going on in your field or your life that you have to choose their disappointment or your disappointment. I invite you to choose your disappointment. Like, you don't want to allow yourself to have to live that for two people. It is not fair. It is not what we are meant to do here. And there's repair that can be done on the other side, should that be the way that you need to go. But choose yourself always first.
Yeah. For women and that pleaser aspect of us, we forget that choosing ourselves isn't selfish, right? It's actually the greatest action of self-love. And we also give others permission when we do things. We lead as the example, right? And inspire
100%.
people.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny because old me, if you had told me anything about self-love, like I would have absolutely, like, that would have made my skin crawl and been like, shut up, Carole, I don't want to. I say that with all the love in my heart because I didn't even like myself, Carole. Like, I was confident and I was successful and like I checked a lot of boxes. But if you had asked old me if like I actually had self-like, not even self-love, I would have been like, what are you talking about? No, that's not a thing.
Yeah. And I equate self-love with self-mastery.
I do too. I do too. So let's talk a little bit about what got you into the work with Joe Dispenza. He is very much, I would call him a guru in this space, not someone who has ever resonated with me. And we've shared some stories in our conversations in the past, but I would love to know what drew you to his work and like how you see this work as an important part of this self-mastery journey that you take people on.
Sure. I tripped into him, not literally, but when you're on a major healing journey, you're open, right? Because the Western medical model was a complete fail. I had an orphan disease, which means there's very little research. And so I was going to Mass Eye and Ear, and they're affiliated with Harvard. So it was all take this drug, take this. Oh no, that didn't work. They would say you failed this drug. Oh, good. You just put an F on me, right? I just knew that wasn't my path. And so I just started looking at everything. And that's how I ended up getting most of the certifications I got, just because I wanted to understand how the body healed. And so and I'll just give, because it's a great story of trusting the universe. So I was taking a writing workshop and there was a prompt in the workshop that said, write about the hardest thing. And I wrote about the prospect of becoming blind. And we read our pieces out loud. And after I read mine, this woman comes bounding over to me and she says, have you heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza? And so I say, oh, is he at Mass Eye and Ear?
Is walking the hall. Yeah.
No idea who he is. Right? Yeah. And she said, oh, no, he does these retreats. And she said, I had a rare blood disease. I went to one of his retreats and I had a spontaneous remission. So I said, what's the guy's name again? So I write it down and I buy a couple of his books and I read them, and they're a little dense. And then they have meditations that go along. And that was my first pass on his stuff was, I don't know if this is for me. And then a couple of months later, I was teaching an anti-inflammatory cooking class. And at the end of the class, a woman in the class goes, I think you would really like Dr. Joe Dispenza. Have you heard of him? And I said, oh, I have a few of his books. I think maybe I'll revisit them. So I revisited them. And what was resonating was how he presented the information in terms of how you change, how you create change. But his meditations were still leaving me kind of like, I think I don't know how to meditate. This is not really doing it for me. And then about 4 months later, we were having we always have Thanksgiving here. And my middle stepdaughter, who's now married to Jasper, but she was dating him at the time. And she said, can we have Jasper's mom for Thanksgiving? She lives in Florida and has never had a New England Thanksgiving. I said, sure. Now, I've never met the woman. And if you just make believe that this is his book, she walks in the back door and this is how she walks in. Have you heard of this guy?
She's holding a book up to her face for those of you who can't see.
Yeah.
That's insane. So the universe is literally like, hey, Carole, Joe Dispenza is calling. Please pick up the phone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I finally picked up the message on the third try, right? And that night after we went to bed, I got on my computer and I just looked on his website. Said, oh, he's got a retreat in, I don't know, I think it was Santa Fe or something. And I think I could do it. And I literally signed up for it that night online. Now, his retreats sell out in 5 minutes. So the fact that I even at that point was able to sign up or people were signed up for months before I was on. And so I was meant to go. And so I went to one of his retreats. It was out of my comfort zone. So that's go out of your comfort zone, go to a place with, I guess at this point there were 800 people or 850. Now they're like 2,000 people. And then eventually I just let go and I just surrendered to being there. They were just starting to do coherence healings. And so now it's all measured and everything. But like I went up to somebody and said, how do you get to be a healee? And they said, just write it down on a piece of paper. And then we're going to just go talk to Joe and see who gets to be selected. Yeah. So anyway, I got picked to be one of the healees. I didn't have a spontaneous remission, but what I can tell you is that I felt the presence of God or the universe or divinity or oneness or all that is. And at that point, I was like, this stuff is real. And I went home and I did the work religiously. And then in 7 months, I started seeing my symptoms just one by one disappear. And so at that point, I don't care who this guy is. Like for me, who I was a finance person, like he teaches the biology and the neuroscience of change. And so for me, it's, we're designed for this. Oh, now that I know I'm truly designed to heal, then I believed I could heal because he proved to me in his books and through all the data that supports what he says in his books, because I've read way more than Dr. Joe at this point.
That about you.
He's a great compiler of other people's work. It resonated with me at that point in time, not initially, but eventually. And then I found out that he trains a select group of people every year. And I didn't have any of the qualifications, but I was like, I'm just going to apply. And I got accepted, and I still had the imposter syndrome while I was there because all these other people were trainers and all this other stuff. So I was like, well, no, I've never done any training, but I can sell. And if you sell, it's like training is selling, right? So I got certified, which took about a year. It's pretty rigorous. And then I wasn't even, sure how I was going to start doing his work. In fact, like I didn't have a plan. Then I just started putting it out there. And initially I like, please take this class. You could for free.
Yeah,
Come.
I'm begging you. You can come join me. It works, I promise. Let me show you and convince you. Hmm. Sounds familiar.
And yeah, I was giving it away, and then eventually I really stepped into my power in the work. And at that time too, I was becoming certified with my qigong work and medical qigong, and I don't know. I can't even remember my certifications because I
Yeah, the
didn't
list
do
is
them
long.
for a list. I did them for me.
Okay.
Yeah. But they built me, right, into who I am and, what I believe. And I believe that you need 2 things to heal. You need to believe with every morsel in your body that you can, and then you have to make radical change. And then there's tools, and there's a lot to choose from. One
Hmm.
of the tools that I love is Dr. Joe, because I think the other thing that I teach is that there's a hierarchy of healing and that you are what you think first, and then you are what you eat. So first, let's get your self-mastery, like your mindset piece in order, and then we can deal with anything around eating. But at that point, it's really for me, it's all about conscious eating, so that's really what I teach, and then ultimately,
Hmm.
the heal part of me is the tools. What's your lifestyle? What are the tools that you're gonna be using in your lifestyle to continue on your self-mastery journey and your healing journey?
What I was thinking about when you were talking about all your certifications that you did and how you this is pieced together and come to a beautiful pinnacle really of how you serve and support people. I was thinking about the corporate journey as the same as that we go out and we get all these certifications and we become these experts and subject matter and everything in between and it builds into this identity like we galvanize this identity with these corporate pieces. And that truly, at least in my opinion, is
Mm.
why when you make a shift into entrepreneurship or some version of that, like it really feels extra hard to unwind that because all of those puzzle pieces that have created this version of you have to be rearranged into something different. And my question for you, Carol, is how have you leveraged some of that corporate skill set into what you do today? And have you been able to marry the two in a way that feels meaningful, or are you just a completely different version that, doesn't really see those pieces and how they work together today?
Oh, no, I see everything that I've done in my lifetime has led me to where I am, and so every piece of me is who shows up, and I don't mean I don't hold on to the old self in that nostalgic way at all. I'm a wise woman, right? I've lived it. I've been fired, I fought a sexual harassment suit, I've been sued, I've been financially wiped out, I've lived it. So I can stand in my truth and teach this work, not as somebody who's acquired a certification, but as somebody who's lived it, right? I've lived the healing. I've lived my past, and I've looked at what I did in my past and where I could have made different choices and sat in the discomfort as opposed to choosing the comfort. And that's what I believe it has empowered where I am today. What makes it so authentic and inspirational. And I'm not like, I don't mean that I'm so authentic. It's just that I know that that's the impact that, because it's all about love at the end of the day. It's like self love, love everybody, right? If you don't have self love, I think that's why there's so much hate, because people haven't learned to love themselves.
Right.
It's loving all the parts, the good, the bad, my crooked teeth, whatever. It's all okay.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. There's so much to unwind. We could sit here all day
yeah.
and unwind that. But yes, I very much appreciate the level of self acceptance that it takes to even be able to just see the value that you inherently bring. And I feel like a lot of what corporate does is creates almost the disco effect or the mirror maze of projection that hits the parts of you that doubt, that have imposter syndrome, that feel criticized, that bring your trauma to work every day. And so when you think about this big leap that you have to make between, I don't even know if I like myself, to self love and self mastery, like that feels like a very large journey. And so, what you and I talked about before we jumped on the call is if there was a rule that we were to rewrite as part of this series that I'm doing with this season, what is the current rule and then what is the new rule that, through your lens of self-mastery that we could start applying today?
Well, it comes down to trusting, right? Trusting yourself, trusting. And maybe we thought we trusted ourselves in that moment, right? But it was because it was trust in those rules, right? Trust in our ability to navigate in somebody else's rules and deep belief in yourself. Like you heard me say believe, like believe that you can heal, believe that you can love yourself, believe that you can be anything you want to be. The system has conditioned us to believe that we can't, that none of that, what I just said is true. It's designed to keep us in stress and it's designed to keep us in survival. And the minute you realize that it's the matrix, I don't know, I'm going too far here, but
No, you're
it's
fine. It's
that,
true.
yeah. And we could toss it all out. And it doesn't mean you toss out your life. It doesn't mean you toss out the knowledge and information that you've acquired. What it means is you're tossing out these structures that have been designed to keep us the same, designed to keep us controlled, designed to keep us from speaking up, designed to make us full of self-doubt and self-loathing. Even for us women, like the modeling industry, like all of the things, I go, my God, I'm too fat. I don't have blonde hair. We could spend our entire life in that structure and from the outside look perfectly happy and fine, but on the inside, we hate it. And so this journey of self-mastery is the undoing of all of that.
It's
And
bringing the
the
trust from the outside to the inside. And I
Exactly.
loved what you said. What it made me think of was we trust the corporate structure, especially when the 21, 22, 25-year-old of us were big eyed and bushy tailed. And we're like, oh my God, I made it. Like I'm doing the thing. And then all this time goes by and you've just kept trusting and it's all going to unfold. And you check the boxes and you're still trusting. And then you wake up one day and you don't recognize it as not trusting the situation. You recognize it as you made the wrong decision when in reality your trust was just focused on the wrong thing or something that wasn't in your highest good.
Yeah, but it's exactly what you said, and this is what when I teach people, I always say, we've been taught to perform outside of us, to get the A's, to get the promotions, to show people, be the peacock.
Yeah.
What we haven't been taught to do is to master us, master ourselves. So we can get the A's, we can get all the PhDs, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But that's easy. That's outside of us. But as soon as you take it inside, that's where the magic happens.
What I love about everything you said is that you didn't say, hey, quit your job, quit your leadership job, throw in the towel, walk away. None of that has to be a requirement in order for you to explore this part of yourself and learn how to set yourself free inside of this environment.
You could do the work while in the environment, and then you could decide that now that I understand this, I'm going to work at changing my environment, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have to do something draconian.
It's a big fantasy, right? Obviously, I lived it. Some people have to do that. If you're somebody listening that is like, I'm at my end and I have to blow up my life, then go do it. Because I can tell you on the other
Yeah.
side of it, it's going to be the freedom that you seek if you're curious enough about it.
Yeah, for sure. It also, there's no right path.
No right path.
One of my other favorite teachers is Mike Dooley. He always teaches about taking action, right? He's like, look, sometimes you feel like there are no good actions. So then take the least sucky path.
The sucky one. Yeah. The one that's going to move you forward. Beautiful, Carole. Tell everyone what you do out there, how they can find you and work with you and all that jazz.
Great. I'm actually in Western Massachusetts. So I'm in a tiny little town called Stockbridge. It's in the Berkshires. It's rural. It's super sophisticated because we're 2 hours from Boston and 2.5 hours from New York City. And we're known as one of the biggest cultural tourism places in the United States. I live in an amazing place. So I do retreats here. So I do the Dr. Joe Dispenza program. I do one-on-one coaching. I always start with the self-mastery piece though. So that's the foundational work. And then we move into exploring and getting my clients on their self-mastery journey, the one that they can begin to integrate as their lifestyle, because everybody's different. Different tools, different diets, different all of the difference. So Love Eat Heal is my website. You can find me there. You could email me, Carole with an E at loveeatheal.com.
Thank you so much for all your
Thank you.
time and wisdom today. Very much appreciated. I'll drop all of those links down in the caption below, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you, Lauren, so
And
much.
thank you for sharing the new rule of trust and belief, because more people need that conviction. And before we got on here, just for a little bit of context, the Super Bowl was just yesterday, and we were reflecting about the Bad Bunny sentiment of not giving up the belief in yourself as being one of the main game changers of life. So appreciate all your wisdom and look forward to having you back on the show again soon.
Thank you, Lauren. Love you so much.
All right, you too. Before we go, I'd like to invite you to sit with this. Where in your life or career are you overriding signs or signals that are trying to point something out to you? Not the dramatic ones, just the subtle ones where you're saying yes, maybe when you mean no, where you're powering through when your body is clearly asking you to pause. This is your reminder that your body is not the enemy. It's not inconvenient, it's not weak, but it does provide you a significant amount of feedback. Trusting isn't about blowing up your life. It's about telling yourself the truth early enough that you don't have to choose the blow up option. So this is your formal invitation to start paying attention to the signals, the tension, the fatigue, the quiet resentment, and that nudge that you keep dismissing. Because what if those aren't problems? What if those are actually little invitation? While we are in the season of rewriting the rules, I invite you to start with this one. Trust yourself enough to listen, because where you're being led is something far greater than you can even imagine. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I look forward to seeing you on Corporate Fuckery next week.